Well, good morning, all souls. Welcome. Yes, I'm Assistant Minister Randy Lewis, and I'm joined on the chancel by our program minister, Reverend Dr. Nicole Kirk, who will be delivering the message today. So we are both so thrilled to be with you here today. Now, I heard our senior minister might be the online minister today. Now, he just returned from Guatemala, building schools in Guatemala for the Sienna Project. Now, I know he's a little sore, so we'll let him off this Sunday if he's okay. But he'll be back on next Sunday. Yes, and special welcome to those who've joined us online, our online viewers and everywhere, members watching from all over the world. We're so glad that you've decided to join us today. Now, if you're on Facebook or Zoom, please drop your prayer requests, joys, and concerns in the chat so that in a moment we can light a candle and hold space for you here in the sanctuary. Now, if you're new to All Souls or a first-time visitor, we have a special gift for you. As the ushers come down the aisles, if you raise your hand and keep them raised until you get that gift, we want to actually welcome and celebrate you today. And also, we invite you to a special meet and greet right after the service in the Sonnen Library. Our Welcoming Souls team would like to meet you and to tell you about all the great things that are happening in this community. And if you're online, please remain for our coffee hour conversations immediately after the service. Now, if you will, I invite you to stand as Dr. Kirk comes with our invocation and covenant.
This is indeed a day that God has made. Let us then rejoice and be glad in it. And let us count our many blessings. Let us be grateful for the capacity to see, hear, feel, and understand. Let us be grateful for the incredible gift of life. And let us be especially grateful for the ties of love which bind us together, giving dignity, meaning, worth, and joy to all our days. Please join me in saying our covenant together, printed in your order of service. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to speak the truth in love, and to help one another. Welcome to All Souls, where we love beyond belief. As our chalice lighter comes forward, turn and greet your neighbor. Let's keep this energy going. I love your energy. It feels so good this morning, and it was already here before the service even started. Oh my goodness, people, it is good to be together again, the end of spring break for many of the school districts here. And it is my absolute pleasure to introduce our chalice lighter this morning, Linda Allred, a longtime member of All Souls. She raised 2 children through our youth and children's choir programs. Linda, as many of us know, is an artist and may be a familiar and special face to you if you're a part of our Wednesday Connections, where she often does a workshop that invites us to work with a variety of mediums and creative artistry. And so today, Linda Allred lights our chalice.
We light this flame not to hold on, but to open ourselves to stillness, to change. With awareness, we loosen our hold of the noise that crowds the quiet. In this light, we choose presence, unfiltered, unhurried, and whole.
The Time for All Ages today is a poem by Deborah Friedman that calls us to be present and to listen as each moment passes. Was. This sky is the same sky that was blue, but now is spilling down. This rain was. The same rain that was drips is now sips and songs. Was. Where singing was, a buzz is. Was. Sunshine is. Was. A shadow is. Quiet is. But listen. The earth's heart beats. Was. Blue is. Blue was. Still, this sky is the same sky that was. I invite our children and youth to come to Sunday school and think about the moments that are passing so quickly.
Space, we pause to acknowledge the joys and the sorrows in our midst, and to find strength in our shared compassion, and in the comfort of this community. Heartfelt condolences to the family of longtime member Sarah Carlson, who passed away this morning. Holding Stephanie and Mark in our prayers. We light a candle for the Bent family, the Bent family, and the loss of his sister-in-law, Clara Angela Bent, who passed away on March 19th in Jamaica, just 6 weeks after her husband passed away. We light a candle in celebration of longtime member Tex Hartman, who is celebrating his 100th birthday today. Yeah. And we light a candle in celebration of a new season of spring. And he's going to be surprised that we did this, but we're going to celebrate our dear Rick Fortner, who has a birthday coming this Tuesday. I invite you now to name aloud someone you wish to be included in this sacred moment. I light a final candle for all the names spoken and those unspoken but yet remain in our hearts. If you've lost a loved one over this past year, or if this Sunday is the closest to the anniversary of that loved one's passing, I invite you now to stand in memory and mourning for a brief moment of silence before the prayer. You may be seated. Holy One, Holy One, stillness in the chaos, presence in the noise. We come to you carrying what we no longer need at times. Help us to release. Help us to let go of the grudges we've nurtured, the outcomes we've tried to manipulate and control, the voices that shame us into silence or into shouting. Help us to unclench our hands so that we may be open to surrender and trust. Teach us, oh God, to listen, not just to the words of others, but to the quiet stirrings within our own souls. Help us to listen to the wind in the trees, to the breath between our thoughts, to the whisper of wisdom that often goes unnoticed. Oh God, let our listening be an act of love, a pause that makes space, a silence that welcomes truth, an invitation to grace. Oh God, you are not only in the words we say, but in the courage it takes to be still, to wait, to hear, to heal. Oh God, you are the voice, still and small, and we're so thankful. We're so thankful. Amen and blessed be.
Voice still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing. In storm and rain, sorrow and pain, still will remain singing, calming my fears, quenching my tears through all the years, singing.
How do you say to your child in the night, nothing's all black, but then nothing's all white? How do you say it will all be all right when you know that it might not be true? What do you do? Careful the things you say, children will listen. Careful the things you do, children will see and learn. Children may not obey, but children will listen. Children will look to you for which way to turn, to learn what to be. Careful before you say, listen to me. Children will listen. Careful the wish you make. Wishes are children. Careful the path they take. Wishes come true, not free. Careful the spell you cast, not just on children. Sometimes the spell may last past what you can see and turn against you. Careful the tale you tell, that is the spell. Children will listen. How can you say to a child who's in flight, don't slip away and I won't hold so tight? What can you say that no matter how slight won't be misunderstood? What What do you leave to a child when you're dead? Only whatever you put in its head. Things that your mother and father have said, which were left to them too. Careful what you say. Children will listen. Careful you do it too. Children will see and learn. Guide them, but step away. Children will glisten. Tamper with what is true, and children will try, if just to be free. Careful before you say, listen to me. Children will listen. Children will listen. Children will listen.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Years ago, when I was in my early 20s, on a sweltering summer day, I attended a Quaker wedding. It was on a rural farm in eastern Tennessee. Now, I made a crucial mistake that afternoon. In my rush to arrive, I forgot to explain to my date how a Quaker wedding differed from other weddings with its strong emphasis on reflection and silence. The wedding took place near the farm's large pond under a covered wooden pavilion, and on the pond, ducks and swans tussled on the water in the growing heat. As the temperature and humidity soared, the wedding guest arrived wearing formal wedding attire, more suited for a cooler venue. The earth steamed, the flowers drooped, and the wedding guest wilted. Moments after we sat down in the hot shade, the service started. A Quaker wedding takes place during a Quaker meeting. The service begins in the silence with the bride and groom escorting one another down the aisle to a pair of chairs in the front of the gathering, where they sit until they're ready to announce their intention to be married. My friends glided down the narrow aisle, sat down briefly, and stood to declare their intention to marry, returned to their seats, and then the elder of that Quaker meeting stood up and explained to those gathered that we would be silent together as we waited for the Spirit, the divine presence, to move us to speak about marriage, love, or the couple. After the instructions, the elder recited a gorgeous poem on the beauty of love, seemingly out of nowhere, and sat down. The ducks splashed in the pond while we waited for the Spirit to move us. As a river of sweat flowed down my back, family members, friends, and guests stood up to testify to the couple's love. They expressed their hopes for them. And while I wanted to celebrate my friends, I also hoped the wedding would be brief on such a hot day. Spirit, keep it tight, keep it quick. As the guests and family shared beautiful stories and wisdom, I kept on hoping that the Spirit would help bring words to me In fact, I found as more and more people shared, I spent more and more time thinking about what I was going to say, crafting it, trying to change it, to make it just right. But by doing so, I had stopped listening. My attention turned away from the people speaking to the moment and turned toward the words I was forming in my head. And finally, without help from the Spirit, I stood and shared a story about my friends. And then I sat down, and the community returned to silence. And then I noticed that my date was getting quite agitated. He was shifting in his chair. He was pulling at his tie. He was wiping sweat from his brow. Without explanation of how a Quaker wedding works, my date began to believe that the wedding could not end until he spoke. And so in the growing silence, he felt that everyone was waiting for him to do his part. Finally, he bolted out of his chair, babbled some heartfelt nonsense in a hopeful bid to end the wedding. But as he sat down, the silence continued. A few more people spoke, and the wedding finally ended. We moved to celebrate. I learned 3 important lessons that day. First, we often fail to listen to other people and ourselves, because we're so busily crafting our reply in a conversation. I was fortunate this happened right before I was going into ministry. How often that our minds are already thinking of the next answer, the response, how we're going to say the perfect thing, or maybe an argument and push back. Looking back on my friend's Quaker wedding, I realized that my date and I had essentially missed most of the wedding. We were so worried about what we were going to say that we had stopped listening to everything. Not only the words that were being spoken, but all of the sounds and even the sights around us. This often happens when we multitask, when we're looking at our phone, glancing at our watch. We allow our minds to flood with that next thing to do on our list. Second, I also began to learn that listening is a multi-sensory activity. It involves all of our senses, and in our discomfort in the silent portions of the wedding, we missed the sounds of nature that surrounded us, the ducks moving on the water, the rustling of clothes, how the heat that afternoon changed the air around us. We stopped listening to ourselves, the sounds of our own breaths. As scholar Evanly Gleamy notes, sound is basically a specialized form of touch. Sound is a specialized form of touch. Sound is simply vibrating air which the ear picks up and converts to electrical signals, which are then interpreted by the brain. The sense of hearing is not only a sense that's not the only sense that can do this. Touch can do this as well. So if you're standing by the road and a large truck goes by, do you hear or do you feel the vibration? Even on a Sunday morning, do you hear or do you feel the music? And third, we learned from that Quaker wedding, we often think about the way to become a better listener is to stop talking, to shut up, to simply be quiet. But with these imperatives, we forget to turn to listening. We forget to embrace silence. A silence that is not the absence of sound, either an empty room or the help with noise-canceling earbuds or headphones. Rather, silence is a space that's not filled with noise, but often includes the sounds of nature and humanity. Silence is holding space for gathering our thoughts and ourselves, and also for letting go of the thoughts that are so intrusive and overwhelming. Silence is rest, but it's not empty or defined by complete absence. After all, the ancient mystics of Christianity and other religious traditions, those who went out into the Egyptian desert and other deserts in this world to seek the divine, did not find silence in the desert. Rather, the ancient desert fathers and mothers found the sounds of nature, the wind on the sand and rock, the movement of animals, the hissing of snakes, the scuttle of a lizard, the flap of a wing, and at times, the movement of water. As Kim Haynes Edson in her fabulous book, The Sonorous Desert, What Deep Listening Taught Early Christian Monks and What It Can Teach Us, she argues, for ancient Christian mystics, the desert only seems deserted. It only seems silent. It only seems to be a place for solitude. The parched landscape reveals, perhaps surprisingly, the fullness of life. The apparent emptiness helps us embrace community. The bareness cultivates a rich experience. Finding moments to hold space in our own lives, to find silence, to be apart, is a way to help us embrace community, as long as we remember the two parts. The pandemic moved us more to the solitude and silence side, and many of us are still finding a way to get back that connection, that embrace to community. We need both to thrive. Silence also helps us cultivate gratitude for community. And yet in these tumultuous times, listening is becoming increasingly difficult. It's one of the tools, yet it can be one of the tools that can ease our anxiety. I certainly have many friends who say that there are certain news broadcasts that they cannot listen to right now, that it feels like an assault to them, to their very being. But that doesn't mean we should stop listening to those who are close to us, to our friends, our family, to the stranger that we need and hope to connect with. Yes, listening can be a tool that can ease anxiety, to increase well-being, to help us build relationships. Listening and its companion silence are the lifelines for these times, a way to connect deeply with others and ourselves. Because how often do we forget to listen to ourselves? When I reflect on listening and silence, I'm often reminded of the ancient story of a prophet named Elijah, who was filled with despair. He felt disconnected to the holy, to the divine. But then Elijah was told to go to a mountain, for the divine would be passing by. He was told to stand on the mountain, and that's where he would witness this miraculous moment. And so Elijah went to the mountain, and he waited, and suddenly there was a great and strong wind, so strong that it was splitting mountains and breaking rocks before the divine. But the divine was not in the wind. And after the wind, there was an earthquake, but the divine was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, there was a fire, but the divine was not in the fire. And in that moment, afterwards, after the fire, after the earthquake, after the great wind, there was the sound, the sheer sound of silence. Elijah experiences the holy, the sheer sound of silence. But in other translations of this text, the Hebrew is translated as a still small voice, a still small voice of calm, or the sound of gentle silence. God, the divine, the holy, is not in the dramatic display, the noise of the wind, the power of the earthquake, the fierce fire. The divine, the holy, the wisdom is in the silence. Or perhaps, just perhaps, Elijah listened, and it was there all along. Janice Dunn, in a recent article in the Happiness series for the New York Times, and maybe you saw it, it was quite recent, shared the power of listening to family and friends, and that it's been proven, scientists have been able to chart that when we talk with our loved ones and we feel listened to, and when we listen to our loved ones and friends, it has a major impact on our happiness, has a major impact on our overall well-being. But sometimes people resist because they fear it may take too much time, or I'll do that another day and another time, pushing it off as if time is endless. Dunn and others suggest you should ask your friend, and they've figured this out, the timing to be enough that you feel fulfilled when you speak and when you're listening, and vice versa, that the right amount of time to get that bare minimum is 8 minutes. 8 minutes. 8 minutes. And so Dunn and others suggest you have to ask a friend, instead of putting off, say, can we have an 8-minute conversation on the phone this week or in person? 8 minutes. She even gives a script. I read in the New York Times this week, we should have an 8-minute conversation to make us more happy. 8 minutes. In the article, Claudia Glasser-Musin, a psychotherapist in New York City, tells us that hearing the sound of a loved one's voice is emotionally regulating. So why do we avoid it? Well, why do we not listen? Why do we skip over the chance to listen to others and be fully present? Why do we not listen to ourselves? That dance of listening and silence and listening is a wellspring for us in these challenging times. It offers so much possibility if we only give it a chance. Years ago, a friend of mine shared his wife's diagnosis of cancer and how he struggled in that moment, and how he realized that listening was the last thing he was willing to do. As he waited for the test results and more tests to confirm their worst fears, breast cancer, Tim, who was a minister, spoke of the hours he spent in prayer and meditation. He prayed as he had never prayed before. He spoke the words, he made the motions, he yelled out. He cried, he wept, he mumbled. All the ways he knew to approach heartbreak like this, he called to his side, but nothing happened. Finally, after an exhausting every avenue he knew of, Tim fell silent. He sat in silence. He dwelled there for quite a while, and he began to really listen. And at first, he began to hear the noises of the world around him. He heard his breath. He heard his heartbeat. And he heard something else. He heard, he says, peace. He heard love. He heard a sense of well-being, a sense that he felt so strongly that it did not promise a cure for his wife. It was a deeper understanding of life and death and illness and their role as a family and partners together to face whatever they had coming in the months ahead. Tim learned to listen to himself once again, and then he learned to listen to his wife and his children and his friends as he went through those difficult moments. Silence and listening. Only an 8-minute conversation to start. What gift can you give to yourself, to your friends, to your loved ones this week, next week, and in the months to come, in a world that is full of so much noise? But if you don't believe me, perhaps reflect on this. Kathleen Norris, the author and poet in her book Amazing Grace, talks about some of the extraordinary ideas that emerged when she used to invite children to reflect on the power of silence. Over the years, Norris frequently visited schools to help children explore the topic of poetry. In one exercise, she invites the children to concentrate on noise and silence. Norris describes the exercise to the children like this. The rules for noise were simple. When I raise my hand, I told them, you make all the noise you can while sitting at your desk using your mouth, hands, and feet. The kids' eyes would grow wide, and the teachers as well. So she would then add the important part where when she would lower her hand, they would have to stop making the noise. Let's try that, actually. Let's make some noise together. When I raise my hand, you will make all the noise you can while sitting in your pews, using your mouth, hands, and feet. And then when I lower my hand, you will stop making the noise. All right, so here's my hand up here. The rush. So when children were asked in her classroom to describe noise after doing this exercise, they would use cliches. They would talk about elephants and other ways to talk about noise. But when she asked them to imagine silence, to just breathe normally and quietly, to make no noise at all, just as all of you are, she found that this exercise was liberating for their creativity. She would ask the children to write about silence, and they used words of strength and images full of imagination. One boy, she writes, came up with the image of strength as being as slow and silent as a tree. Another wrote that silence is me waiting to wake up. Silence is me waiting to wake up. Silence is a tree spreading its branches to the sun. Another child wrote, silence is spiders spinning their webs. It's like a silkworm making its silk. And then the child added, Lord, help me know when to be silent. And lastly, a little girl from a small town in a very small town far away wrote Norris's favorite and perhaps mine. This little girl, a third grader, I should say, wrote, silence reminds me to take my soul with me wherever I go. Silence reminds me to take my soul with me wherever I go. Silence teaches us to listen to nature, to ourselves. It teaches us how to be present so when we are listening to nature but to one another, we can really hear. We can really be with one another. Kim Haynes Eitzen says that silence and listening joins us not only with the present, but connects us with the past. Those who heard and watched, feared and hoped, those whose voices still speak across time and place, that help us thrive in this moment. If we only pause to listen, if we only pause to listen deeply, here and now, to the earth and to one another. Blessed be, and amen. I invite you to join in hymn number 112, Do You Hear? Rise and embody your spirit.
Allison Gary. Prayers for Deborah on the loss of her aunt, Jo, who passed away recently. Kathy Pitcock, please light a candle for Carrie Jones and family. Carrie's father died this past week. Just wanted to honor them. And also, now I've done this, so I don't want you to be embarrassed, but there's a silver Sonata that's in the parking lot still running. Don't feel bad. A number of these folks have done it as well. So you might want to go out and check your car. I wanted to thank you for that message today. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. There's a line that jumped out at me. There were several lines that jumped out of me, but you're talking about feeling the music. And I really felt the music this morning. Liz Brilhart, Shannon Boston, and Mike McCrary. Wow. Thank you for gifting us such sweet music this morning. It is the tradition of All Souls to give away our plate to an organization in our community that's doing the work of love and justice. We do this as a practice of living our values of love and service. Now, this week's offering is going to Women in Recovery. Yes. Women in Recovery is an intensive outpatient alternative for eligible women facing long prison sentences. They work closely with the criminal justice system and various community partners to ensure program participants receive substance abuse, mental health treatment, family reunification, and other services. So when the offering plate comes around, please give generously. But I do have a few announcements. Now, if you're ready to join as a member of All Souls or want more information about membership, please join us at 11:15 today in room 203. Again, that's 11:15 in room 203. The next Sunday, March 30th, is our Heritage Sunday. Now, we're celebrating 104 years. Yes, 104 years. It's our birthday. Now, there'll be one service. How many services next Sunday? One. At 10:30. What time? 10:30. I learned well from you, Dr. Kirk. Yes, it's a time, an opportunity for the entire congregation to come together in person and online. Now, after the services, you can enjoy cake, light snacks, and a visual timeline of our church's history in Emerson Hall. Now, this is a time to honor our shared past and look ahead to our future. Now, later that afternoon, head over to Langenheim Park at 2 p.m. for a fun and friendly pickleball meetup. You might see yours truly out there trying to pick up a ball. Pickleball, yes. This is a fun way to connect with other All Souls players and get some practice before our second annual pickleball fundraiser in May. Now, for more information on these events and other upcoming April events, please check out your order of service or our website. We will now receive your most generous offering for Women in Recovery. Thank you.
with you all this Sunday, and I'm really looking forward to next Sunday when we're all together in one service. It's going to be a fabulous, fabulous time. If you're a first-time visitor, don't forget Sonnen Library out the sanctuary doors to the left across the foyer. Come for refreshments. Come to have your questions answered. Meet some of the welcoming souls. We're glad and happy to see you there. It's such a joy to be with you. And so may the truth that sets us free, the hope that never dies, and the love which casts out fear lead us forward together until the day spring breaks and hope leads the way. Be a blessing and be blessed. Amen.